Welcome to the $1 Billion Podcast, a weekly show about the entrepreneurial journey and making it big in any industry. We're your hosts, Joe White and Kane Daniel. Today on the $1 Billion Podcast, we welcome Alicia Biggar, owner and principal broker at the Mortgage Center We Connect. Alicia is passionate about empowering mortgage agents through efficient systems, innovative marketing, and CRM development. A real estate investor and short-term rental expert, she balances her workaholic drive with hobbies like baking, yoga, skiing, and biohacking. Alicia, welcome. It's fantastic to have you with us.
Well, thank you guys for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Absolutely. So maybe we can start off with talking about your career. You've built a successful career supporting mortgage agents and helping them really excel in the industry. But going back a little while, what inspired you to get into this line of work?
So normally I don't open up about my earlier years. Everyone has a story, and I hope telling mine can inspire someone who may be struggling throughout their life, get into a career of mortgages. So my parents were not great. They divorced when I was 9. Neither of them were around. My mother just up and left, and my dad worked a lot. So I had to grow up very quickly, and I had to fend for myself. I did a lot of interesting things to make money. I swept and shoveled driveways, washed the outside of people's cars. I set up pop stands, babysat my 3 brothers, and cleaned for friends' parents. I would basically do anything to make money, and I was a very scrappy kid. When I was 11, my aunt and uncle took me in because my living conditions were not great. At 14, I decided to move in with my mother. I went from being an honor student to failing. I started doing drugs, and one night my mom came home in really rough shape, and that was my turning point. I think I needed to see that just to see where my life was headed. So I moved back in with my aunt and uncle for a bit, and throughout high school, I lived at a few different homes. I worked hard at my Subway job and saved up as much money as I could for university. And then I moved into an apartment at the end of grade 12 with my high school sweetheart. Having my own home was very important to me because of moving around so much. And this might be why my whole career is centered around helping people with their home journeys. I don't know. So everything was going great. I got a job at TD, which I think was every 18-year-old's dream, to work at a bank. Then my boyfriend died in a motorbike accident, and it really shook things up for me. And then 3 months later, I met my husband, my now husband, and found out that we were pregnant. So I felt like I was going down the wrong path once again, pregnant teen, and I barely knew my husband at the time. My mom was a pregnant teen, and I definitely wanted to make sure that I would give my family more than what I got as a child. So I made a promise to our family to make the most out of life, to travel, to be successful. Now we have 2 boys. They're 19 and 15. They're a handful still. When I started in the mortgage industry, I was actually 19. It was 2007. After my mat leave, I worked for my husband's mom, who was a mortgage specialist at RBC. So that got me into the industry for sure. And then eventually, so she actually also convinced my husband to get into mortgages as well. So after a while, he needed help with his business. He worked for Bank of Montreal. So I joined his team, and then we were husband and wife duo. Very different brains. So he's more of like the visionary, mathematical, big picture focused, and I'm more like the creative and then the one that has to execute all of his crazy ideas. So we worked there for 10 years and then decided to become mortgage brokers in 2019. And here we are today. Yeah.
That's a heck of a story.
Yeah, that is. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
When we asked for the origin story, we didn't talk off air a lot about that. So thanks for being comfortable enough to share all that with us. And pretty crazy ride, it sounds like.
Not something that everybody would know, but I do believe like letting people know that where they start doesn't determine where they end up. And anybody who puts in the work and has the determination will succeed.
Yeah, that's an inspiring story about overcoming and resilience. And that's something we find that is important for success in this industry, I guess, or any really entrepreneurial based industry where, you need that resilience, you need that inner strength, right? And it seems like you've had that in spades, and that's really shone through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I wanted to ask you about something specific that you said. I'm not going to go back all the way to your teen years, but I wanted to ask about the bank. So you mentioned you were at the bank. So you went from RBC to BMO. And then in 19, you decided to enter the broker space. I'd like to know about that decision. What prompted you to leave the bank, and what was that experience like coming into the broker space?
So it was a big shock becoming a mortgage broker. There was a lot of things we didn't expect with just working with different lenders and needing to know a billion policies. That was the biggest shock, but we did have some good help. We partnered with Scotiabank and our BRM there. She was amazing. She walked us through everything. So most of the deals we did when we moved over were Scotiabank deals. We left the bank because after building our book of business, we were basically running on a treadmill every year. We couldn't help our clients with renewing their mortgages. We had to go and look for business every single year and renew our book of business, or not renew, go get a new book of business basically every single year. Clients were calling us for renewal advice, and all we could say is, this is where rates are at. Call this 1-800 number and they'll help you out. Unless they were willing to refinance, the bank wouldn't even let us touch their mortgage renewal. It was a shocker when in 2018, we grew our unit sales by a ton, but our commissions went down because the bank decided to change some rules or some policies on paying out for a certain type of mortgages. They just cut compensation. So the bank can easily turn a tap off and kind of just leave you hanging. Whereas when you're in the broker space, you have so many other taps that you can drink from.
Yeah, that's we hear that as well. The banks, there's just not as much choice, right? And yet consumers still go to banks in the majority. Why do you think that is?
I think they just have that comfort level of that's where they started their banking when they were younger, or like that's just what's familiar with them. They don't know any better. And that's where we are supposed to be teaching them that mortgage brokers, they know their one product, or not one product. They know how to do mortgages, and we do it very well. Whereas with banks, they do tons of products and they might only do one mortgage a month, right?
Right.
Like they don't see things coming through, and someone inside the bank is working their banker's hours, and they're literally putting your mortgage in a time spot in between appointments, and consumers don't see that, and they don't know that they're just selling you their one product as well. And there's just so many more products out there that can be accessed through a mortgage broker.
Alicia, do you find when you educate clients to this that they're receptive to dealing with you, or is there still some pushback? They want to stay with their bank.
No, they're open. So I actually don't do mortgages directly with clients anymore. So I
Okay.
help the agents on my team grow their businesses, but I do still have client conversations. I have never had any pushback or hesitation. The only time would be if somebody was shopping at renewal and their bank is offering the same rate. But that's where you have to sell it that a bank's never called them to say, hey, I can save you money on your mortgage. Whereas if you work with us, like we're always reviewing your mortgage. We actually subscribe to Matt Imhoff's prepayment calculator. So we know the special the special time that they can save themselves a lot of money. And we're doing that calculations by paying off their mortgage, paying off their penalty or paying their penalty, and then going into a lower mortgage rate. So I think when you describe it that way, they see more value in using a mortgage broker. Like I said, when you work at a bank, your client, you do their transaction and you're not keeping in touch with them. You're not going through your database and looking for phone calls to make. And as a mortgage broker, that's what we do, right?
Absolutely.
And when you came into the bank, I'm wondering from that perspective. So for those listeners that are maybe at the bank now, because we're seeing a lot more bankers coming into the industry and considering coming in. And one of the things that we hear is that the bank brand makes it maybe easier for them to prospect. I'm wondering what your take is on that. Is that a struggle that you had came into the broker space? That was it more difficult to get clients coming to you? Was it more difficult to prospect because you didn't have the bank brand, or is that even a challenge that you found at all?
No, we aligned ourselves with the Mortgage Center, which is a nationally known franchise. And they do brand themselves. So they're not the big bank, but we can use the big banks in our marketing, right? Like it's a product that we offer. So if somebody looks up one of my agents on Google, they'll see that they deal with TD Bank, that they deal with Scotiabank. Maybe there's just a couple that we don't deal with, obviously, but having those monoline lenders that we deal with and educating them on the perks that they have, like they just see that we deal with a lot of brands, bank brands. So I don't think it's a concern. And I actually have a few old bankers on my team, so they didn't find it a concern either.
Fantastic. Sorry, again, what's it been like dealing with your agents and helping your agents? Maybe you can talk to us a bit about what that experience is like and what they need and how they're doing.
Yeah. So mortgage brokers, like someone who's super successful as a mortgage broker, they are really good at sales. They're really good at going out, going to networking events, just putting themselves out there. Sometimes they're not as good for underwriting deals. So on our team, we always, like any new agent, has a mentor that they can run any scenario by. And then even if it's an agent that's been on our team for a while, they can always just bring it up. Our team's not large, so we do have a Teams chat and anybody can bring up any question that they have. And then also with that, I am learning that not everybody's good at marketing themselves. So they don't always have a plan. So I try and help agents with their online presence so that they have that other stream of leads coming in, people calling them from online, and then also help them with their social media so that their faces are out there. Typically, somebody doesn't have all three of those traits, like the underwriting, the initiative to market themselves, and then also just wanting to go out there and network, right? So we try and fill in the gaps, but that would be, I think, one of the biggest struggles for a mortgage broker.
I think that's a good point. And it's not always, it's not always apparent immediately what your highest and best use is going to be when you come into the industry. And I think finding that out sooner and then focusing on what is your highest and best use, so that you can leverage and get help where you are not performing as well or what you don't love doing. Super, super important. Is that something that you realized right away when you came into the mortgage space, that for yourself personally, that maybe you were geared more towards education, more towards marketing, content creation, or did you find that out along the way?
Or do you love underwriting?
No. I have actually never done a mortgage from start to finish on the mortgage broker side. I like to do and stick to what I'm good at. So when I started, I'm an introvert. So going out and networking wasn't my thing, but I know it has to be done, right? So I did put myself out there and I did support the community and go to all the events. For me, my thing, I like to do the marketing and anything to do with online stuff. And then I also love teaching. So I didn't think that I would be a great teacher. So I kind of procrastinated in the teaching role for quite a while. I do have ADHD, so sometimes I'm a little squirrely. Just hopping in and out of stuff. I like to fly by the seat of my pants. So usually I'll prepare for a meeting 15 minutes before the meeting. Just, like in high school when you cram for that test, you're reading your notes on the desk as your teacher takes them away.
Yeah, I'm notoriously bad for that myself.
Yeah, so that's how I am. But I have been doing a lot of teaching over the past year, and I actually quite enjoy it now. So it's all about systems and processes, having lists, making sure that each agent is moving along that list as well, right? One of the things I found, I always had do your business plan on the list, and I provided the business plan. I never got a business plan back from anybody. It's that's where they stopped the list. So I decided to do a business action plan workshop so that I could teach people how to do a business plan for mortgage brokering, because it's a little bit different, right? They might have had a business in a different industry, but the things that mortgage brokers do, or anything that we've tried and tested, or things that work for us, things that don't work for us, we discussed in the business planning workshop. So that turned out really great. So I'm learning as I'm teaching and just coming up with ways to make sure that the agents are successful.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about, obviously training, you're seeing people, are you seeing a lot of people that are new, brand new to the industry, or are you seeing a lot of people coming in that were existing agents?
So a little bit of both. So I do have some ex-brokers on my team. One person, so I typically don't tell my friends that they need to be a mortgage broker. I've actually never done that, but I have a friend. She's just such a sweetheart. She always follows up with people and checks in, and she was working a 9-to-5 job. I knew that she had plans to maybe do something different. So I said she needed to be in sales. The only thing I could help her sell was mortgages. So she got licensed and she's on our team and she is doing absolutely amazing and killing it. Underwriting was, I guess, the biggest hurdle for her because she had never had to do a role like that before. So she was working closely on on other deals that our agents had just to practice. Because as you know, as a new agent, you don't see lots of deals come in. We always call it the fire hose effect. Some people love it. Some people don't like it. As much as people might not like it, I think it is the most effective way to do deal after deal, just so that you kind of can get your bearings and know exactly like which different situations are coming in. So she was brand new. And then recently we hired someone that was in like the new home sales industry. So she's familiar with mortgage brokering because that kind of coincided with new home sales, right? But she isn't familiar with like, again, underwriting a mortgage and what that takes. So
That's an interesting point you made about, not specifically not inviting your friends into the industry. But you did this one person. I'm wondering, what do you look for? Or how do you determine, like, what's your criteria? How do you determine that someone may be well suited to this industry? And then also vice versa. How do you determine maybe if you think that someone might not be suited?
So you have to be a self-starter. I know that's like the taboo thing people put on their resumes. But you do have to be the one that researches everything, is proactive, learning policy on your own. You can't have somebody telling you to do it. You have to just have that determination and be hungry enough to succeed. And then also have a network of people around you. So that is something that I look for if somebody hasn't done mortgages yet, is that network. Because if they don't have it, like where's your next deal going to come from? Because real estate agents and home builders might not trust them enough as a brand new agent to send them business, right? It is friends, family, the ladies on your hockey team or on your children's sports teams, just your church, people in your community. Even if you're like really big into your children's school, like that's where your leads are going to come from. And those people are going to be your cheerleaders and recommend you, or put your name out to help you get business. So the networking, and then also, making sure that somebody is proactive in what they're doing and not needing somebody to hold their hand. Cause I'm not a manager. I'm just here to help them grow.
Right. Now, when it comes to, we know that earlier, or maybe still, you're a rental investor, right? So you invest in real estate. Mm-hmm. What got you into that aspect of the business, and that helped your business as well?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because I've never owned a rental property where the tenant stays in it for a year, aside from we had bought a show home off of a builder and rented it back to them, which is still best tenant ever. During I think it was like the 2012, there was kind of a little, or no, it was before that. In 2010, there was like a little boom that happened after the recession. So my husband and I, we saw an opportunity to buy a new home. It wasn't completely built yet, but we knew we could flip it and make money. So we did that, and it was very easy. So that kind of dipped our toe into doing or investing into real estate. And then not our own clients, but people would come to us for opportunities for people who needed to do rent to owns. So rent to own is something that we explored. There are different situations, though. It's like a house that somebody needs and they just don't qualify right now. But being a mortgage broker or specialist at the time, we were able to kind of vet them, let them know, hey, after 2 years of being self-employed, you can totally take this mortgage over. Really guide them. Like, we knew about their credit. They had the down payment, which always was a substantial amount. So it was just about filling that gap for them. And one rent to own that we did during the pandemic was a lady moved into a house because her husband had actually killed himself in her current home. So she just really wanted out of there. She moved in, but because of the pandemic, she just didn't qualify because she was self-employed and her business was not being able to run at that time. So she was renting the home from the person for a little bit. She actually set up her business and put some money into the house. And then not being able to qualify for the mortgage, she would have ended up losing the house. A friend called and asked us to help her out. So it was just a situation that it makes you feel good knowing that you're keeping her in that house and helping her out, and knowing that after a 2-year period that she would be able to take on the mortgage herself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How do you structure the rent to own?
So we have an agreement with the lawyer that they put their money in. So typically it's like a 10% or 20% down payment. If anything were to go sideways, which we did have one go sideways, it was a horse ranch and we are not ranchers, but we had enough down payment to cover the realtor fees and to cover any expenses that we may have had just to get the home sold. So it's still a risk because your property value is what you're going off of when you sell, and making sure that the home is in good shape when you sell, which that one we had to put some money into. But overall, they provide the down payment. They pay for all the legal costs. They pay for everything, property taxes, and then they pay rent. There is no rent plus down payment just because the property or the down payment's given up front. So yeah, it's not risky for them and it's not risky for us the way we do it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good win-win there.
Yeah.
And you know what, I think what I'm like, I love this discussion because I think what I'm getting is how much you care and how much you want to help people. And I think that that's not as well understood about this industry, that, you know, we talk to a lot of brokers and from different areas. And I think that's the number one thing that we get is, I love that feeling of helping people. The money's good or great, but I think that's really a big part of the reason that a lot of successful brokers stay in and get into this industry is because of being able to help people stay in their homes, get homes, or whatever it might be, investing. Is that something that you consider or look for when bringing in a new agent, that like, what is their why?
That's so funny that you say that, because in our business action plan workshop, the first question was, what is your why? So obviously I'm looking for people who lead with their heart. But with that, you can get into any industry and still be a good person, right? So the why doesn't necessarily have to be just wanting to help clients get into homes, because everybody on my team wants to help. Our whys, I was explaining, are like, why do you want to be in sales? Like, what do you want for your family? What do you like, where do you want to be at the end of the year? So in the mortgage industry, you know how it's flexible. We work from home offices, but we still have to put in the work. So some days are 14 hours. Some days you can take off and do your appointments, but obviously still check your emails. So a lot of the people on my team like the idea of flexibility with mortgages, and then just the outcome of helping people get into homes, or helping people restructure their finances is just like the bonus.
That's cool. Do you find that those on your team are using technology more? For example, doing more virtual interviews as opposed to meeting the client at their home or at Tim Hortons or an outside location?
Yeah. So I think because of the pandemic, it really switched everybody into the mindset of doing everything online. So maybe people who were opposed to it were kind of like forced to now do appointments online. So we do use Teams for meetings. Typically, we don't meet clients anymore unless we have somebody that is just not good with technology. We use Velocity. So if somebody can't upload documents into their portal, you have to go and meet them and help them with that. So we do use a lot of technology just to make the process go smoother. So we have like just an email that we send out. It's an application they fill out online on their own time. And then they just have to sign the consent form. And then there'll be the list of documents that they have to send over to us. If they can email them, great. If they want us to send them a link to the portal, that's what we will do. And then after that, like anything that needs to be signed, it's done through Adobe, because if you just send somebody a PDF, they don't know how to sign it.
You got to print it and sign it, take a picture, try to scan it, multiple documents.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do that. Yeah. Have you used any of the note takers when using your Teams meetings?
Yeah. So we have, we're integrating Copilot into our Microsoft 365. It's actually a pretty cool program that will sum up all your notes into a really nice, it'll take out like anything that is irrelevant and it will just sum it up really nice into an email. So we do that for our Teams calls with like our team themselves. My team hasn't really done like online meetings to go over commitments or anything like that. That is something that I want to integrate.
Mm-hmm.
So are they still doing those in person?
No, they'll do it over a phone call.
Oh, okay.
So, we send out an email listing anything that we're missing, and then they'll send out the actual commitment to sign and go over it with them that way. But I just think the difference between like using a mortgage broker and maybe some of these new, like you hear of all these new mortgage technologies that are coming out where it's all kind of done a little bit more through AI. I think the in-person, like that, not in person, but like being more personable through a Teams meeting is something that we should be doing.
Are you worried about?
It's interesting. Sorry, Ken. I just wanted to ask you about what your experience is with the numbers. When you send out, you've spoken to somebody, you send them out a link to fill out an application. You go through the online, or you go through a commitment over the phone. What are your experiences with closing numbers? In other words, when you send somebody out a link to fill out an application, what percentage typically do you find actually do that?
So if we get an application out, we have a system. So we do use a CRM. It's on the Salesforce platform. the system sends them an email the next day, and it says something like, hey, looking forward to seeing your application. If you're having trouble sending over documents, because that's actually one of the problems that people have. It's that it teaches them how to turn their iPhone or how to use their phone and turn it into a scanner. So that it kind of like gets them over maybe that hurdle.
Right.
And then on the third day, a task pops up to call that person to follow up with them. And I always say, if you leave a voicemail, it doesn't count, but still leave the voicemail. Tell them in the voicemail that you're going to text them. So we'll send them a text that says, hey, just checking in, making sure everything's okay. And they usually reply to it. In some cases, we'll resend them the application link because you know how people are, oh, I didn't see it or whatnot.
Yeah. So do you find that that's pretty successful? You have a high pull through on the completed applications?
Yeah. If someone was wanting to move forward with it. So if it's like an online lead, as you probably know, you have to answer that phone call and you have to send them something right away.
Yeah.
If you delay, they probably already called 5 other people and they'll never fill out your application. But if you have a good conversation with them, a lot of the agents on my team, like they have really good referral sources and networks. So if it's a good referral that they're sending over, like a real estate agent referring a client, typically they will fill out the mortgage application.
Okay, that's good, and it sounds like it really is necessary to have that immediate follow up in place to not let that lead go cold, so to speak.
And after we send out that initial email, we also send out a text that says, hey, I sent you the email. If you didn't get it, let me know, or it might be in your junk because Hotmail sends everything to junk mail.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I mean, we talk a lot about this, about lead generation. Digital leads especially need to be like responded to in single digit minutes. Otherwise, the drop off rate is insane. So that's really good. And I think what you're saying is you can do it completely digitally, and you guys are doing it, but it's probably necessary to have a complete process, multiple touch points, multiple follows, multiple platforms, potentially like text, email. And I think that's, to Joe's question, I was going to ask the same thing about drop off rates and conversion rates overall, doing it digitally versus maybe in person. But I think if you have that process really nailed down, you can have it as high or maybe even higher than when having done it in person. That's what it sounds like to me. That's been your experience, is that it sounds like it's not a problem for you at all doing those completely digitally.
Yeah, as long as you're following up. You can't just send out an email and pray. You have to send out the email, make sure that they are following the steps. And if you get an application but no consent form filled out, you have to let them know, hey, I got your application. And it's actually an automated email that goes out through our CRM, but I'm still waiting for your consent form and I'm waiting for the documents. So you have to follow them out. Like it's only 3 steps. Those are the only 3 steps: application, consent form, documents. And sometimes they stop at step 2. Like you don't know, but if you're checking in with them, they'll typically get all 3 steps complete.
And what do you think this means? These technologies, this automation, it's only going to increase over time with the introduction of, I mean, you mentioned, the buzzword AI earlier. There's going to be more technology available to brokers and for consumers as well. What do you think that's going to mean for the role going forward in the next couple of years?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's a big question, right?
All mortgage brokers think they're going to be out of a job at some point, but I really don't think that's the case. So I love AI and I love using technology. I think some people are afraid of it because they think it's going to replace their job. But even like when we made our CRM 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I actually thought it would replace one of my assistants because I'm like, oh, I don't need this person doing this, this, and this. Like it's all automated. But I did need an assistant still. Like I needed somebody to follow things along, and it didn't replace a body. It just helped them do more work. So I think the same with AI. Like I think it will just help us get faster, have faster turnaround times, have more reach, like reach in the community, reach everywhere, and just to be able to get more leads. So it's definitely going to complement our mortgage businesses. And people who are afraid of AI, like we're all on equal playing fields, right? So if you don't keep up with technology, you are going to be behind, but we all have the same opportunity to invest in these technologies and look into them. So I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I wanted to switch gears just a little bit because from what I understand, are you starting a personal blog?
I am.
Okay. All right. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that because that sounds really cool.
Well, it's not too much mortgage related.
Okay.
But so one of the things I love to do is bake. So I have a lot of really good recipes that I've used over the years. So I actually used to make big fancy cakes for friends and family on my spare time. Now I don't know where that went, but it would be on a weekend. So I have tons of recipes. So I'm going to be sharing recipes on my blog. And then over the past year and a half, I've been on a health journey. I don't have the best stomach, like so many other people out there. So I have a lot of new recipes that are like the gluten-free, dairy-free, and they don't have refined sugar in them. So it will be a little bit of both. And then also, I just like to share about my life and lessons I've learned and hopefully share some inspiring information. Who knows?
Yeah, that's fascinating because you're also into, as we mentioned in the opening, biohacking, right?
Yes.
And that maybe you could tell us a bit about that because I've heard the term, but I'm not overly familiar with it.
Oh, that's a good one. So I learned about biohacking probably 2 years ago. Everybody's familiar with like cold plunge. I think that would be like the typical stereotype of biohacking and intermittent fasting. So basically, it's the use of like technology to experiment and to try and increase your physical and mental health. So I will do anything and try anything from, I have a mat. It's called a pulse electromagnet field mat. So it's a grounding mat. So you don't actually have to be meditating. You can just go lay on the mat and it's the exact same thing as meditating.
Really?
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the name of that again?
So the short name is a PEMF mat.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a pulse electromagnet field mat and it helps with sleep, your immune system, inflammation. And then it also helps with ATP production of the cells. That's the whole other ball game. But
so your blog's going to be a big success because this is really important info.
Well, it's like the mat is quite expensive, so it's $1,800. So it's not something that everyone would invest in. So I like to share my experiences with it because it might not even be for everyone, right?
Right.
So if I can share what's worked and what's not worked, save people time and money, that is the best case scenario. So I also do like red light therapy, which is very beneficial. And then anything like little from having a happy light on my desk. I don't know if you guys have heard one of those.
What is a happy light?
Is that mimic daylight?
Yeah. So it mimics your circadian rhythm. So being in Canada in the winter, we don't see the sun when we wake up. So
Yeah.
having that light at your desk is supposed to mimic that. It's like years ago when they said to go to tanning beds to get rid of your winter blues.
Right.
So it would be similar to that without tanning, because we all know that's bad for you now.
Yeah.
And then,
Is the technical term happy light?
yeah, no, well, I don't. Mine's called a happy light.
Okay.
There might be another term for it. I don't know.
Happy light.
And then the coolest thing I did was I did some genetic testing, and it told me what parts of my genes I was missing so that I can take supplements and vitamins to make up for what my body doesn't have. So that was very interesting.
So you really are heavy into the biohacking, and that'll be fascinating. I hope you write about that a lot on your blog.
Yeah, my husband's sometimes not impressed, because the other day he came to bed and I had a piece of tape on my lips so that I could try breathing through my nose.
Oh, wow.
While I slept. And he's like, no. Like, what is that? But there's been a lot of research about doing it, so why not try?
It must be interesting being a baker and having all those baked goods potentially, but then also intermittent fasting where it's like, oh no, I can't eat this until, hour 4 or whatever.
Yeah, I bake for my friends and family. I know everything tastes good, so I don't eat refined sugar. So I actually don't even eat my baking anymore.
Oh no.
Yeah. What am I doing?
Well, you know what I've heard so many terrible things about refined sugar that I guess you're probably the healthiest one. Well, you're definitely the healthiest one here today. That's for sure.
No.
Right, Kane? Well, you eat refined sugar, right, Kane?
I don't eat well. I do exercise, but I don't eat well. And maybe not next year, maybe another year, I will start on that path and journey.
Well, I'm looking forward to checking out that the mat. Does it help you mimic, or does it mimic the benefits of meditation, or actually help put you in a meditative state?
Both.
Okay.
So there's 4 settings on it. The first 2. So the first one helps you if you want deep sleep. So you would lay on it before bed. And then the second one is to help you with your REM sleep. Mm-hmm. So that's more of like your restorative sleep. And then the third one is for meditation. So if you're laying on it, it will easily make you fall asleep, or you have to just kind of be a little bit more kind of in that space to meditate. But it does help you meditate, and it's comfortable because it's warm as well. And then the fourth state is to give you energy.
Okay. And how do you find it works for you? Do you find a lot of benefits from it?
I do, but I know that there's mats out there that are not real, or maybe not the same. So I have a really good quality one. Mm-hmm. I tried to buy grounding sheets. That's another thing. My husband was like, I don't like these sheets. And I found they did nothing because they were just from Amazon. I think they were like $100, and they did not do anything similar to what my mat would do.
Okay. So on your blog, are you going to be talking about some of the things that you've tried and your experiences and help people make informed decisions about how to do biohacking and other types of wellness improvement?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, definitely sign me up for that blog. I need that. So is there anything else, do you think, in regards to, a tip that you would give a mortgage agent that just joined your team and said to you, Alicia, I want to know one thing, that is, if there is one thing that I can really focus on at the beginning, right here at the beginning of my career, what could that be? What should I be doing right now?
Oh, there's so
I
many.
mean, it's a loaded question, right? Because there's a lot, but
Yeah.
maybe one. I mean, I know there's several, but
Well, so the first thing I would say is go over your business plan with your mentor, because everybody has a different way of envisioning what their business looks like.
right.
All of my agents have completely different ideas of what they're going to do to get business, and all we can do is help them and guide them. And then once they have their plan in place, like, be consistent, don't give up on your strategy, and you will succeed. You have to put in the time and effort up front, and it does get easier as you start to snowball your business. Getting those first 10 clients are probably the most challenging. But then after that, those clients start referring you business. You'll pick up you'll work with a realtor maybe on the other side of the transaction. So they'll be familiar with you and might start referring to you. You just have to be persistent. Know that the results do not come immediately. You have to be able to adapt and not lose focus of what you want your business to be, and just, consistently just going out there and putting yourself out there.
Do you think the business plan is probably the cornerstone of getting started? It's one of the most important steps.
Oh, for sure. Just kind of like what we always tell our clients, you don't know where you're starting if you don't know where you're starting, right?
Yeah.
You can say, how long does it take to get to Calgary? Your answer would be different than my answer, right?
Right. Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the same thing, Joe, that it really is about business planning first. And then I know you mentioned mentor, and that's what we hear a lot as well. So having a business plan and then having a mentor, finding a good mentor that you vibe well with.
Exactly. Not everyone, I won't be everyone's cup of tea probably, right? But having somebody that can help you with what you want to do is definitely really important. So that is the biggest advice. You see a lot on these newbie mortgage chat Facebook pages, asking how can I grow my business? How can I do that? And it's so many people just throw out all these answers. Well, Google Ads, what if somebody wasn't into doing that on online stuff, right? So how can that be their answer? So having the business plan and knowing exactly what they want to do, their why, like we mentioned earlier, why they're doing it, the bigger picture is really important.
Yeah. And you know what, Alicia, I think the mentor point that you make and what you do for your agents and the direction and the assistance you give them is probably a key component to their ongoing success. Absolutely, their early success. And you know what? We've been chatting for nearly an hour, and the hour's just flown by. Mm-hmm. I can see why you love doing what you do, and I'm sure your agents love being part of your team. So I want to thank you for taking part in this today. That we've talked about a lot of great topics, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to take a few takeaways from this that they can help grow their own business and be more successful as well. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, and I hope someone can take at least one good tip from out of this.
Oh, you know what? I'm sure they will, because there are a lot of good tips that you covered today. Yeah. Absolutely. So thank you again.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, guys. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the $1 Billion Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode.
For more in-depth entrepreneurial insights, follow us on social media. And for more info on the show, go to billiondollarpodcast.com.
See you next time.